Welcome back to Bennystake. I'm your girl Benny, and listen, today I'm not alone. Okay, the Father is with me, but I also have a guest, a very, very, very special guest. I'm gonna let her toot her own horn. Okay, I'm gonna let her do her own thing, not the echo. Let me, Dr. Maureen, I'm gonna mute you for a second and just like allow, for this to not doing echo. But I'm going to her horn, but I'm gonna allow her to toot her horn and do all of the things she's gonna tell us about herself. But ladies and gentlemen, please go ahead and welcome our good sis, Dr. Maureen. She's a fertility doctor, a fertility coach. She does all the things. For those of you that do not know, this is Fertility Week. So we got to know all of the things. So give it up. Y'all better go ahead and clap. And I'm going to go ahead and have Dr. Maureen tell us all about herself. Dr. Maureen, all you. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Benny, for inviting me here. I appreciate it. My name is Dr. Maureen Siebert. I am a family nurse practitioner, but I have my PhD. So I'm a PhD prepared nurse. And so I research fertility, specifically fertility in Black women. It is my love, it is my passion. So much I started my own company called Fertility Goals just to help people figure out what they want in life so they're not thinking and wishing shoulda coulda woulda many years in the future, and they really have their life kind of planned out
Mhm.
when it comes to family planning and building the family of their dreams.
For sure. And over here, we love an educated Black woman. We love a Black woman that learned some things, that knows all of the things that she's talking about. So thank you so much for just like, coming on here and gracing us and educating us because I have to be honest. I know for me, there's a lot of things that I don't even know about fertility. Like at the base level, what is fertility? Because a lot of people is fertile. We know some people was not very fertile, right? But like, what even is fertility? Like, can you just like tell us, at the base level what that is, so that people can be educated, like before they can even engage in conversations or plan on like their families, like to even know what fertility is.
Absolutely. So fertility is the ability to conceive. There's also another word that gets thrown around in my space, which is fecundity. And so that's the ability to actually carry a pregnancy to term. So
You're
there
gonna
are,
have to spell that for the people,
yeah,
okay? You're gonna have to spell that slowly. Because
F,
this is not a killer and the bees. I'm like, okay, what that mean now? What that mean?
it's spelled Fecundity.
Okay.
And so there are people who can conceive, they can get a positive pregnancy test, and then unfortunately they experience something called recurrent miscarriages or miscarriages. So they're never really able to get to term or to hold a baby in their hand. So my
Mhm.
research focuses on people who cannot conceive and also people who experience miscarriages. So they're really not able to build the family of their dreams. And so you start off by saying you don't really know certain things. That is normal. Most of the people
Mhm.
that I meet don't necessarily have a working definition or knowledge of these, especially because when we were in high school, the conversation was about not getting pregnant. And
Hello?
but there are quite a few people, 1 in 8 couples, 1 in 6 women who actually experience challenges with conceiving or bringing a baby to live birth.
Mhm. Yeah, and I really want to tag what you said about even when it comes to our bodies and we as women from such a young age, the conversation always is around like, do not get pregnant, like, don't bring no child around me. I'm not ready to be no grandma, like, don't do none of that. And so even the knowledge just like around our bodies, like what a woman's body is able to do, like many women don't even know, their cycles, right? Like a lot of people know, like, okay, so I got my period, or like I'm ovulating, but like it's 2 other cycles, like something as basic as that many women, do not even know that. So can you just like talk to us a little bit more about like our cycles just like as women, so that for even young girls watching, so that they know what to even to have the language for certain things as
Yeah.
it relates to their bodies.
Yeah, so the menstrual cycle is a physiological and biological process that we all go through. Many of us go through. There are a group of women who actually don't start their cycles for various hormonal or structural reasons. And we can get into that later. But overall, it is a very intense 28-day. Sometimes people, their cycles are 21 days or up to 32 days, having multiple times a month. Um, it is the cycle that basically we are preparing ourselves for pregnancy. The best way I can break it down is that there are two things going on at the same time. One, your body's trying to get an egg prepared, nice and mature. Any good month, your body's trying to get one egg that is mature and ready to go to actually conceive and meet the sperm along the way in the fallopian tubes.
Just one? Just one egg? Just
Just
one. Okay. Okay, start of the month. Like, how about the other eggs? You don't feel left out? Like they just chose this egg. Like, don't they be jealous? Like, oh my gosh, Shantiqua's out here. She got chosen. Like, when my time gonna come? Like, that's discriminatory. Like, how you gonna discriminate against the other egg? I'm a little jealous of the eggs that ain't made it. Like, what's going on? Go ahead, Dr. Marie. Just one is crazy. I thought it was like two or three or something. Just
no,
one is crazy.
people who do end up with fraternal twins, they are ones that ovulate multiple times. And so
Mm,
that's why you can have a brother and a sister and like a fraternal twin pregnancy because it's coming from two separate eggs.
mm.
Identical twins is one egg,
That
and
one egg.
yeah,
Okay.
so in that process of mitosis, meiosis, and replication, the egg actually splits and becomes two
Mm,
separate eggs, and so that's how you
okay.
get identical twins.
So this when the ovulation. Tell me about the other cycle. So we spoke about menstruation
Yep.
because that's when you're bleeding. You spoke about, ovulation. Tell me about the other two that many people, don't be knowing.
So there's
Me
2 big
included
ones where your
sometimes.
body is trying to get an egg ready, and the other one is your uterus, is trying to get the lining of your uterus together. So in order for an embryo, so the
Mm-hmm.
egg and the sperm have to come together, in order for them to actually grow into the babies that we hold and love and kiss on,
Mm-hmm.
they need a very nourishing environment, and that environment is the uterus. And so that's what they actually stick onto. And
Mm-hmm.
then from there, that's when the baby is developing its placenta and gets the nutrients. So the shedding that we have of the tissue, that would
Mm-hmm.
actually be the environment where the baby is growing over time and getting the nourishment. And so with that, we actually need to make sure the lining of our uterus is really good, not just focusing on ovulation. And so when you get into things like fibroids or endometriosis or adhesion
Mm-hmm.
from untreated STIs, that's when
Mm-hmm.
you get the challenges of people are often able to conceive, but for whatever reason, they might experience miscarriages. There is also the genetic factor. There
Mm-hmm.
is not one size fits all reason as to why
Yeah.
have challenges for fertility or fecundity.
Mhm,
But overall, these are kind of the factors that we need to consider. If
mhm,
we want a healthy baby to grow to its fullest capabilities, we're definitely going to need a healthy uterus, and we're
mhm,
also going to need healthy eggs as well too.
mhm.
So you talked about, them cousins who got, pushed
Left
off the
out. They
boat.
just got left out. That ain't right. I want justice for all the eggs. All the
Yeah.
eggs deserve some shine.
So a lot of them, they start, responding to the hormones. Um,
Mhm.
and, if they don't and they don't become that mature egg, that one egg, they actually end up dying off and shedding off
Oh
in the
no.
process. And so that's why when people are like, oh, you lose your eggs, after 35, that has actually been starting since puberty. Uh,
Mm,
a handful amount of eggs every month during your menstrual cycle, but that rate of which you actually lose them, it just gets a
mhm.
little bit faster after you turn 35.
Is that how you get into, the geriatric, pregnancies, and I know even that is a term like people don't want to hear. But like, okay, tell me this.
Yeah.
The biological clock that people always talk about when it comes to women, like, is it just like a way for, men try to dog down women, or is that like a real thing that we really need to be? Because to your point, if you're losing some of your eggs, like they ain't just made it like, they couldn't come out the hood, like they couldn't become that star, like you couldn't get the egg to align and become the star. all the other ones, like you're losing them. And correct me if I'm wrong, women, we are born with as much eggs as we will ever have. Like you
Yep.
don't get no refill. Like you don't just be like, oh, I got me some more eggs. So that ain't right.
Mhm.
So if you are losing that over time, and like by 35, you're saying like you're losing even more. So that will make the biological clock something that women have to be, I guess, maybe mindful of when it
Yeah.
comes to like, family planning and fertility.
Absolutely being cognizant of. The biological clock is real. Unfortunately, there's some people who try to downplay it a bit. I know there was a recent study that talked about there's more women over the age of 40 having babies than teenagers. And sure, that
Mm,
might be true, but there's a lot of nuance to that. Are,
mm-hmm.
in the advent of egg freezing, are those that person's eggs right now at 40, or was it from their 20s of when they actually froze their eggs? So
Mm,
there's the questions that we need to ask. Um, what is the quality of the pregnancy? Thinking about, sure, we're having kids, older, but also I'm hearing from my friends the newborn ICUs are getting more and more packed. How healthy are
mhm,
the babies as we're getting older? And so my work is really to just help people understand, if you are open to having kids and say you either don't have a partner, you are considering a job, or you really want to work on your career. So
mhm.
I spent, 7 years in grad school. So
Yeah.
that was something
Wow.
that was important to me. Shout out to Winston-Salem State, shout out to Duke, Boston College, and UPenn.
Hello.
So I got them degrees.
Mhm,
So,
mhm. We
but in
thank
that,
God for the degrees, because otherwise I still would not know how to spell the other word that you done said. So we thank God. Shout out to the degrees that you being had. Okay.
so yeah, I definitely just tell people, figure out what your goals are, and
Mhm,
make some decisions, catered toward that, because biology, it doesn't wait for anybody, and there's some
mhm.
people who have diminished ovarian reserves, and it's like a genetic thing. So I
What
have
does that mean?
talked with people. So for example, I met somebody, I don't believe she was in her 30s yet, so she
Mhm.
was in her 20s. She had this genetic disorder where she was in menopause. And sure enough,
Wow.
yeah, her ovaries, when, they did a bunch of testing,
Yeah.
she had the quality of eggs of like a 70-year-old. And so the chances of her actually conceiving, were slim. And so she's, gonna have to work with a fertility doctor at her young age, to
Wow.
building the family that she wants, but she may have to consider donor eggs. And so this is not to scare anybody, but really it's just to show, things that have happened in silence
Mhm.
for years, for decades, right? For centuries. Often people will say, oh, do Black people, Black and Hispanic people really experience infertility? I say, yes. Think about your uncles or aunts, the ones
Mhm.
had kids. All they do is just love on and spoil on other children. You don't know what
Mhm.
their story is. They, of
Yeah.
maybe never had a round table to talk about it, but there's definitely a lot of experiences that go unspoken. And so my
For
hope
sure.
people can really do the work to just get tested and figure out, what they're working with now.
Yeah. I love that you spoke to a little bit of like, the culture, within Hispanic culture, or even like Black cultures. As soon as they see you with hips, it's like, oh, she about to carry them kids. It's like, how you know?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
you know how what my uterus finna do? Like it's just hips. It's not like that's like an indicator. But I do want to go back to the conversation around like geriatric pregnancies, and I know obviously women are the ones that carry the children, but the reality is you cannot break the egg unless you got the sperm in there, right? So talk to us about the role of the sperm. Like if we got that 35, not necessarily like as a cutoff, right? Like I'm not talking about like, once you're 35, you cannot have no kids. I'm not talking about that. But like once we see a little bit more, the older a woman gets, we see a little bit more of an increase with, that rapid loss of like eggs. What does that look like for the men? Like what does that look like in terms of like sperm, like the quality of the sperm, and does that play at all a role into just family planning, bringing the babies into the world, and all of the things?
Yeah, so male factor infertility is definitely a thing. And of course, they just have a different timeline than us. It's so unfair. They really lose a lot of their fertility in their late 40s and 50s. My father was in his 50s when he had me. My daddy was a Rolling Stone. And he had grown kids and he had me. My big
Mhm.
brother is 35 years older than me. Just to give
Wow.
you context. Yes, typical lovely Haitian man, hardworking man,
Hello?
hardworking in a lot of ways. So
Hello?
so you
Hello?
you definitely see those disparities. However,
Mhm.
male factor infertility is actually also increasing over the
Mm,
last couple decades as well too. And so in most fertility cases, male factor is going to play in a role about 20 to 30% of the time.
mm.
Meaning it's like the sole reason why the couple cannot conceive
The
or bring.
man.
Yes, the man.
You said 40. Run me by those numbers again because I need to calculate some things.
Yeah.
Because when I see on my timeline, the men's, they be blaming the women's. Like, oh, I want me a youngin because I'm going to come in here, the biological clock. Whole time you 57, you missing a side tooth. Like, that ain't going. So tell me, what is the number as of late? You said 40%?
Between 20 and 30% of all infertility cases is solely due to male factor infertility event.
Solely. So we're not even dividing like, oh, 5% was the woman, like solely 20 to 30%. That's a lot of percentage.
Yes, it's a lot of
That's
percent.
a
We're
lot.
not on these podcasts talking a whole bunch. I'd be like,
Like,
"Give me the mic, sir. I want
like,
to
stop.
talk."
For real. Like, please stop. But like, what do you think is causing that? You say as of late we're seeing that increase. Is it like what? Just is it the culture of like maybe excessive drinking, maybe smoking, like just like is it just like health related, or are some of these men who, maybe they're also born with certain things, just like you mentioned with your friend who from such a young age she just like discovered like what she had. But is it something where like there's something men can do that we just maybe are unaware of? Because the reality is women are blamed a lot from the for the family dynamic in so many ways, right? Like even before you get pregnant, like it's always something that has to do with the woman, or at least that's what society would portray. So is it more so just like okay genetics, something just like biological, or is it lifestyle? Is it the culture? Is it the stresses of life? Like, what is it that you're saying?
The answer is yes. All of them.
All around.
Environmental for sure.
Mm-hmm.
One, men will, I mean, as you always say, they used to go to war, but some of them are in, toxic environmental environments. Um,
Mm,
so if they worked different mines or in different places where they're exposed to radiation and toxic chemicals. So
mm,
there's that group of people. There are war injuries as well too. If you have a pelvic injury, often
mm,
that will, move around some organs and be a challenge. Then you get into the genetic piece of it as well too. How did the testes form? Do they have undescended testicles as a child? Different structural abnormalities that we often see in certain communities, especially not only of color, but from low socioeconomic status as
mm-hmm,
well too. And then going back to the environmental, the smoking, constantly drinking, marijuana has a huge effect on sperm quality. Um,
mm,
Also smoking cigarettes and vaping. Vaping is terrible, but often people think it is a better or safer alternative than cigarettes.
mm-hmm.
The concentration of nicotine and all those harmful chemicals in vaping could be 10 to 20 times worse than a lot
Wow.
of cigarettes. Yeah, hookah. Those who are in the hookah lounges all the time, every weekend.
That's
Young
already problematic. As a grown man, like, why are you trying to get strawberry flavored smoke up your mouth? Like, as a grown man, as a leader of the nations, right? Like, as a provider of the people, why you got a strawberry mango passion fruit flavored hookah in your mouth every Saturday? That's a problem. We got to talk about that. Like, that's at least I could respect you with the cigarette. Why you got passion fruit in your mouth? No, ma'am. No, like don't do that. Do not do that. But carry on, Dr. Maureen. Do not let me sidetrack you.
It's just toxic chemicals, and then also, you can have erectile dysfunction
Mm-hmm.
as well too, which is often, caused by diabetes or high blood pressure.
Mm.
When I was doing my, nurse practitioner clinicals down in, North Carolina, and, often what actually brought in men to the clinic was the fact that they couldn't have an erection. And then after all these different tests, we're like, "Yeah, buddy, like your blood pressure is off the charts, your blood sugar is off the charts. The blood flow is not gonna blood flow correctly." And
It
so
ain't gonna make it down south. It's
nope,
just not gonna go. That's just we gotta distribute and we're gonna figure out priorities. It's not gonna go. It
nope.
ain't that's not where it's gonna go. And why do you even think that is? Like, and I don't even want to say just like within the black community, because I can understand how, you have a lot of racism, which we cannot downplay when it comes to the care that black people in general have experienced. And we know how people have mishandled and mismanaged us in so many ways, right? So there's definitely that component that I can understand. But like, what else do you think is like this big hesitation with men when it comes to like taking care of like, their bodies to the point where it's like, when your friend down south is now out of tune, that's when like you want to seek help. But like, your blood pressure being high, like it's been other things. Like, what do you think is a reservation, not just within our community, but I feel like men as a whole? And if you don't have a woman by your side who's setting up the appointments and doing the things for you, it's like men just they will die young. And it's like you could have taken your vitamins, like change your diet a little bit more, and we could have avoided a lot of these things. But like, what are you finding from like what you've learned as it relates to fertility that's, causing the reservation with a lot of men not seeking out medical help as soon as maybe possible?
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with racism and, the ways that the medical system has treated us, Black people, throughout the country. I learned a lot more about it being in North Carolina, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. That was
Mhm.
like one of like the hubs of forced sterilization, where people would essentially be given different chemicals or have different procedures, and that led them to be infertile, and they didn't realize this until many years later. And the criteria for this type of surgery or procedure was,
Mhm.
oh, they are imbeciles, they are not smart, they are the inferior race. There are people alive right now who won't go to certain hospitals in Winston-Salem because that hospital has a wing named after that doctor, or that doctor has just only retired and they're still around town. And so
Okay.
this is not something that's happened in like slavery time,
Mm. This
but
is recent.
yeah, this is recent. And when we think of slavery for men and women, the bodies were just completely mistreated. They were treated
Mhm.
as science experiments. The Tuskegee syphilis trial, it mainly
Yep.
focused on men.
Mhm.
So we have this medical mistrust that honestly it makes sense. It's completely justified. And
Mhm.
so but even me, I'm a nurse practitioner, Black woman. I thought people would trust me right away. They're constantly side-eyeing me. And
Mhm.
I'm just like, "No, like I promise I'm for you, for the people."
Mhm.
And the mistrust is very deep. And then we think about just racism in general. A lot of our policies have left us behind ever
Mhm.
since the time of slavery. So I've written about this and talked about this a lot, where before, if we had babies, it was a good thing
Mhm.
as we were producing money. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden slavery ends, it's abolished, and now we're having too many babies. And now it's becoming this stigma. Then you get into like the Reagan era where this whole welfare queen is coming about,
Mhm.
who, is supposedly buying fur coats and all that stuff. Today's equivalent would be Birkin bags off of
Mhm.
with welfare
Uh-huh.
and all that stuff, and
Mhm.
child support. And so overall there's a lot of different factors, and then just internally could be stubbornness and stress, um, that is masking fear, really. Often
Yeah.
when I would have these really great one-on-one conversations, whether in the clinical environment or just, with different family members, they're just like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. So there's just this fear to even go to the doctor to figure out what it is, and
Mhm.
thinking that it's just going to be really hard. But Blood pressure can be healed completely. People can be healed completely from diabetes as well too. And
Mhm.
in the case of fertility, if you catch something early, you're able to, you
Do
know,
something about it.
something. Not everything can
Mhm.
be healed right away. I'll be realistic, but
Mhm.
overall, sometimes even for women, the issue is not necessarily you need IVF. Your thyroid might be off. It's a process
Mm.
of hormones,
Mhm.
or you just have that one polyp or fibroid that's in the way that won't allow for implantation.
Mm.
So sometimes it's not these really difficult processes that we think it is, but we also have to consider the context that people are trying to approach these medical environments.
Yeah, you have a lot of, that medical mistrust that you speak of. And honestly, there's a lot of things that if you trace it back, not even far enough. If you just look in the backyard, oh, look, it's slavery, it's racism. It's like a lot of these things that are just like, connected. But then there's also, just a cost of everything. Sometimes, I know for me, I remember there were times where based off of the insurance that I had, the care that I would receive would be different. So there's that issue where even within the access, like there's certain things like I'm talking about, it's a lot of gymnastics just for me to get like basic, blood work or something just done, like a whole lot of hula hooping just for you to give me the care. Versus where I've seen, I was a nanny for like a little while, in a predominantly white and wealthy neighborhood. They walk into the hospital, everything they need, all the tests, everything that they need within a
All
couple of days. Like you all say, you got everything that you need, but it's like y'all are telling me y'all are booked this like 3 months. My foot gonna fall off. What you mean it's 3 months? Like you gotta kind of like come in and do a little something. But I want to center this even more so because you say your expertise is around just like Black women and fertility within Black women. What are some of the things that you're seeing mainly affecting Black women as it relates to fertility? And what are the things that's like within our control that we can do better as Black women? And what are some of the things that we maybe can do better at advocating for ourselves if we just know the language? Like, hey, ask for this, make sure this. I remember like one of my girlfriends a little while ago. Um, she was pregnant. She kept complaining about headaches. I had watched on the show how like excessive headaches and fatigue can somehow be tied to preeclampsia, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I'm not no medical, no nothing, but ask them like, could this be a thing? Just to make sure that, thank God it wasn't in her case. Like her iron was just like extremely low. But, at least having that as a knowledge to be like, that could be something. Because in some cases it is. And I would have hated for that to have been that because we know it's not something that you can, if it goes too bad, that can be, obviously deadly. So talk to us about some of the things that Black women, first of all, some of the things that we be facing that's like not necessarily specific to just us, but like where the numbers are high for us and what we can do ourselves and what we can like advocate for to just better, you know, receive better care.
Yes, that is a loaded question. We're gonna have to break that down a
For
few
sure, take
different
your
ways.
time.
So, with fertility and the numbers, Black women actually experience infertility twice as much as other groups. And in my research, they're actually twice least likely to seek treatment. And so, you brought up something about access in terms of insurance and finances and all that. There are 19 states right now that have some sort of mandate for fertility coverage for private insurance. In New York State, it's Medicaid. Medicaid will cover basic labs for fertility testing. I don't think they'll do anything higher than lab work.
Mhm.
So, one, don't discount yourself on the fact that finances may actually be in your favor. So, when I did my PhD work, I actually did it out of the state of Maryland.
Okay.
In Maryland, they have a mandate for you to have 3 rounds of IVF covered. And cover doesn't mean free. It could just be what your copay is. So there's some
Mhm.
people only paying like $500-$600 for IVF. And depending on the flavor of insurance you have, it might also cover medications as well too.
Mm.
So one, get the knowledge of what you actually have access to. There's so many people I talk to and they'll tell me about their fertility challenges. And I'm like, okay, where do you live? They'll say Connecticut. I'm like, go to the fertility doctor. They're like, I didn't know I could. Connecticut, Massachusetts, Delaware, they have the best. Like, if you're going to experience this, get a
Mhm.
job in one of these states. Oh, the caveat
Mhm.
is not only does it have to be private insurance, your job needs to be headquartered in that state
Mhm.
as the mandate. So this messed up a few of the girls in the DMV area because, if you're familiar with that area, you could live in Maryland, work in DC, your kids go to school in
Yeah,
Texas.
yeah,
There's different mandates
yeah.
there. So keeping that in mind, and then also there's different jobs that offer access. Most of the tech companies have some sort of benefit or coverage for either fertility treatment or egg freezing. If you have an FSA, the flex spending account, where you can add pre-tax dollars to this account, you can use that for help towards fertility testing and all that. So
You said
first,
it's for FSA?
yeah, FSA flexible spending account. Um,
Okay.
Often there's it can be called an HSA, what's a little bit different, a health spending account. It is something you would talk to your HR office about,
Mm.
because they give you all the different options. And I'm telling you, I have a bachelor's, 2 masters, and a PhD. I still don't fully understand insurance. Okay. Like, this is, some people are like,
Name
I
it again. Name it. No, no, no. We're not going to twist it all around that. Name it again. What we got? What we got?
have a bachelor's, I
Uh-huh.
Boston College, go Eagles.
Uh-huh.
My
Okay.
first master's was Winston-Salem State University. All right, go
Mm-hmm.
Rams.
Mm-hmm.
Also my PhD was at Duke. Go Blue
Mm-hmm.
Devils. That's the only devil I vibe with. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then my second master's was from the University of Pennsylvania. I got a master's of science in health policy research.
Yeah, no, say that, stand on that, because I have a lot of, even friends and connections who they're well versed and they're well educated. And sometimes they will engage people in conversations and you have people trying to argue them down. And I'm like, sir, this is not Wikipedia. They studied this. Like, come on, like put some respect on her name. Don't do that.
And
Not
all the schools I went to, they don't just be giving out degrees, man. You can't just get you can't
Mhm.
just I work for every single one of them.
Hello, and did, but carry on, carry on.
So, yeah, often people are confused and get overwhelmed by the insurance. I'm like, I promise you, so many people do. A lot of this is complicated.
Mm,
So this is where you really just tap into your resources. That's, I would say, the one thing that's also leading to Black women experiencing these things alone. We're not asking for help. So we're not even asking for help to understand our benefits. And we're kind of going by. We're also not sharing with one another. So the weight
mm,
of stigma and shame is profound in these communities.
mhm,
I'll tell this story. When I did my PhD work, I did it out of a very popular fertility clinic in the Maryland area. Most people will know the name of it. And one of the interviews that I did, so I did a quantitative study. I looked at people's charts, almost like 400 charts, and then I interviewed
mhm.
another group of people. And in the interview, somebody said something of like, well, I'm sure I'm the only one that you're interviewing that's experiencing this. And I really had to stop the recording and tell her, I got your name from a random list of 3,000 Black women going to this one network of fertility clinics.
Wow. Wow. Jesus.
And she thought she was the only one. Granted, they have a lot of satellite locations. So
Mm,
many who walked in the office and never saw anybody that looked like her. But, they're not really overlapping a lot of these appointments.
mhm.
You don't know just everybody that's going through it. And so shame and isolation is definitely something that we experience. So
Yeah.
I even started a podcast about this to just normalize these conversations. I'm on
Mhm.
YouTube, and my very first episode was talking about my miscarriage that I experienced this past January.
Yeah.
I had a 12-week miscarriage, and I was just like, I gotta tell people about
Yeah.
this, to tell and share. And I got so many messages of people in their 50s and 60s saying they never shared about their miscarriages.
Wow.
And so that's something like beyond, before we even move into the medical environment, asking what tests and all that stuff, we need to understand what we are doing that is stressing our bodies out,
Mm,
and how, the shame and stigma. Black women, we are very spiritual women. So it makes
mm,
sense that when our spirits are low, a lot of things will flow from there. I am not saying
mhm.
stress causes infertility. That is wrong.
Mhm. It's some things, it's a couple steps. It
Yes.
may make you worse, but you know.
Exactly. So, with that, going into what Black women can do, it's really being mindful of your symptoms, mindful of what's going on, writing down things. Often I'm asking women, and I see people clinically here in Connecticut. I live in Connecticut. Um, and I'm asking them when's their last menstrual period, and they have no idea.
Mm,
I'm like, okay, so what is your period like? It could be this and that. I don't take insurance. I do just cash pay only
mm,
because the insurance provides these frameworks that make it very limiting for providers.
mm,
From your primary care to GYN, you are in and out for 20 minutes because that insurance provider is only paying for 15, maybe 18 minutes of that
mm,
visit. So to get the most, bang for their buck and, use of resources, you are in and out. They don't have time to answer these questions. And so you need to come prepared. And I'm not saying that bias doesn't happen to folks who are, prepared, but if you are finding that you don't really feel listened to and all that stuff, definitely write down what your symptoms are. Prepare at least a week in advance to even
mm,
ask about your family history. All those forms that you're filling out, sometimes like, I don't know. I don't know. Me as a provider, I'm looking at those forms to figure out what you need in terms of preventative care. So if
mm,
you don't know that your mother or your grandmother had uterine cancer, that can go over my head. And now I'm not necessarily maybe looking out, okay, she had uterine cancer, say at 30, 35. So then I should
mm,
start screening and making sure you get your proper ultrasounds or, maybe even doing some genetic testing to see if you're
mm.
genetically predisposed to certain
Certain
cancers.
things, yeah.
And so coming prepared really helps with the conversation. And then also, it is a conversation. I
Mm.
do not like when people leave my office and they can't repeat back to me the plan that
What
I
you
gave.
said to them. Mhm.
So speaking up for yourself is super important. And honestly, getting a provider is like dating. You're not going to like everybody. Everybody's going to
You
have a
gotta
different.
try a couple. You gotta try a couple. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much for saying that because it's empowering me too. Because we always talk about, like, as parents, we want to leave legacy for our kids. Sometimes we just talk about money, leaving them a couple homes, a little change or something. But like before you could leave them anything else, that bloodline, like everything you had and grandmama had, is some things that be just like carrying along. So next time I go to my appointment, I'm gonna tell them everything. My grandmama, she had her big toe, and then my granddaddy, he ain't really slept really well all the time. I'm gonna tell them, we gonna be in there. I'm gonna ask the questions because to your point, it is, maybe there's this almost like we carry suffering to a certain degree as a badge of honor. The strong black woman, like, girl, you need a hug. Like, you don't need any more, you don't need any more, like, any more hullabaloo. And like, we take that approach to a lot of things, a lot of areas, even when it comes to our bodies, that we just supposed to take it. And I understand that there's been a lot of, medical malpractice and so many things that has been done to us that conditions us to think that way. But I really just, like, to your point, encourage women to take advantage of being like, no, like, I need help. Like, I want to share this to even that story, for that woman to think she was the only person. Whole time is 3,000. We are not talking about the things that we're going through enough. And
Mhm.
I feel like because of that, a lot of people, they're just like suffering. They're going unheard, they're going unsupported just with not sharing. And you said something about spirituality and just like how, when our spirits are low, certain things can show up in our bodies as well. I also wanted to tie that and just bring in the concept of faith, right? Because we grew up in a very you're a Christian, I'm aware. And so in the Christian tradition, God gonna bless you, God gonna provide. On the other side, everything that's wrong is the devil. So it's like, how have you had to reconcile, one, your faith, to really understand the science and the biology behind a lot of the things that we be blaming the devil for, and that baby's like, even now I'm not that creative. I promise you it ain't me, right? But like we just everything is the devil. We're gonna turn around in circles 7 times, we're gonna holy water, olive oil, everything. And it's like, girl, did you eat your fruits though, right? Like talk to us about how faith impacts a little bit of the decisions that people make when it comes to like their fertility, when it comes to their health, and when it comes to even that shame that we speak of, right? Because in the church, how you doing? I'm good, blessed, and highly favored. Are you blessed? Like I don't see the favor now, but like that's the answer you're supposed to say. Like, God is good all the time. And it's like we're not talking, well, what has he done that is good that you can share? Well, he's just good. Okay, tell me more. But we don't go into that because somehow I feel like our faith has conditioned us to just be like, don't talk about it, and it's the devil. Talk to us about how that kind of like the relationship, the correlation between the faith and the fertility, and how you've had to balance that even with your clients and just all things fertility.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. It's been a funny experience. I love Jesus. I
Amen.
and I'm in church, I'm in this ministry and training program. Like, I love the Lord, and I definitely feel like the Lord has me in this space to help free some people from these harmful ideologies. And we see it all the time. These harmful ideologies are keeping people in really bad relationships more
Mm-hmm.
or they're keeping them in a health status, or they're keeping them from actually seeking treatment. But I have been in spaces where we're praying for, this food that is multiple types of fried meats and multiple starches, and we're praying for the nourishment of our
You
bodies.
got 3 layers of cheese. It ain't gonna nourish nobody. I promise you. The Lord not gonna be able to do that for you. I promise
Ye-
you. You could
I
eat it though. Don't mind me. I'm gonna have you a plate and a half.
mean,
But just understand the Lord not gonna come in there and make that cheese turn into a vitamin. That's not what's gonna happen. Like it's just not gonna do that.
that's exactly it. And I've been in testimony service where they're talking about they had multiple heart attacks, but the Lord got them through. And and I cringe a little bit. They're like, what the doctors don't know, the Lord has taken care of. And I believe in miracle signs and wonders. But we also have to realize, like, Granny, your leg is falling off because you won't take care of your blood sugar.
Glory.
Like, it was not
Glory.
the devil. I promise
Hmm.
you. It was not
Hmm.
Baal, Beelzebub,
Hmm.
none of them. It was your
Hmm.
habits and
Hello.
you not submitting to the fact that you deal with gluttony or you deal
Hmm.
with, an addiction to sugar. People often think about addictions to alcohol, drugs, and all that stuff. People are addicted to food. Think about ways where, even for me, sometimes I'm like, all right, I got to do better. And it's like a craving. All of a sudden, I need Sour Patch Kids. It's because
Mm.
our bodies have become addicted to sugars in certain foods. But in the space of fertility, it has been so interesting and so amazing where I would learn of people during my early program when I was at Winston-Salem State. They'd be like, I told my pastor, my minister, and they told me just pray about it. And so initially I would get frustrated, but then I finally went to the ministers and pastors, and they, with a servant's heart, will say, I just don't know what else to tell them. I have no idea.
Mm.
So one of the first trainings that I did on fertility, like before the podcast and all that, was with a group of ministers from Church of God in Christ, one of the most conservative Pentecostal Black churches in the United States.
Mm.
And it was amazing the ways that
Mm.
elders and scholars are like, oh, the menstrual cycle. And there is a fertility window between days 14 and 16. And I did quizzes and all that. And so we hear these stories in the Bible of, Sarah and Hannah and Elizabeth and, Samson's mother, all of these examples in the Bible of women who are barren. But for some reason, we think that even that book from several thousand years ago, that we are the only ones, and this is a very new thing. And so I bring
Mm.
in faith a lot to help show that this happens. This is not something that God wants. God wanted for us to be in the garden with Adam and Eve and basking in the fruits and all that, but sin happened.
Hello,
I
I was supposed to have me a mango in my mouth right now, just like chilling
yeah,
and vibing now, but no, I'm out here hustling. Loving life.
yeah, we're supposed to be butt naked right now, just like
Hello,
enjoying
just
life.
vibing, just like hunching each other and vibing. That was all we're supposed to do with the fruits, a little, kiwi or something. But
Yep.
no.
And yeah, it was that was what life was supposed to be. That's what God designed.
Hmm.
But sin happened, and there's just consequences of it. And fertility is just one of them. There's divorce. God didn't want divorce. They didn't want brothers killing each other. They didn't
Hmm.
want, all these different things that we see. And also I help kind of people center that infertility is a disease. It is definitely something that is a process that happens physiologically, biologically, and it
Mm.
can be corrected in different ways. And so when I hear people are like, "Oh, you shouldn't seek treatment for it." All right, tell your family member who has breast cancer not to do chemo, not to
Hello,
take blood pressure
because
medication.
hello, Joe Healer.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go
Blame him if
ahead,
you want.
go
So
ahead. Let him heal you.
yeah,
Let
and it's
him
not
heal
to
you.
say that IVF is for everybody. Sometimes it doesn't. There's no 100%
Hmm.
guaranteed treatment. But also, I don't feel like people should be arrested in their thoughts and their faith, wondering whether or not they're going to please God if they do this. And
Mm.
so, that's just my own personal beliefs. I do feel like it is backed up scripturally in the ways that the Lord brought us together to help one another, to support one another in these spaces. And also, there are physicians in the Bible. And so there's physicians and providers, nurse practitioners, all that stuff in present day who have done the
Yeah,
work, done the research, and have some really safe and effective methods of treating this.
yeah. And just to, you said something even earlier about how when we talk about our bodies, even from such a young age, it's always like do not get pregnant,
Mhm.
and that's all the tools they give you. You don't even know your lady parts. Like you can't even name them. There's like a lot of us don't even have language. Like okay, this is my clitoris. This is my the majora people. You got the big majora.
Labia
This is
majora
like
and labia
the
majora.
minora and the majora. The two of them. You got that. And the clitoris, I looked at it the other time. It's like it go deep. It's like a bird in there. It looks like a little flamingo in there. Not a flamingo. What's that other bird that look like this? That's what it looked like. And you just see the little tap at the top. But like I'm what? I'm about to be 30. Like even the language around it, I don't even know. And there's just like taboo around our bodies. And I feel like the church is connected to that in a little bit, right? Like there's just the purity movement, even in and of itself. Like I know it's intended to protect us from like some of the harms, but like in a certain way has created a little bit more, a little bit more physiological and like psychological trauma for many people. And you talk about how like don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant. And so even I feel like my body's gonna remember that, so that when I'm trying to get pregnant, now it's like okay, like what do we do, right? And it's I don't even know what is the balance to like figure out the two, so that young girls are able to have a healthy understanding about their bodies, the healthy understanding about even what it means to become a parent, like what it would take and all of that stuff. And you have a game card. I thank you so much for giving this to me, y'all. I'm gonna leave this in the. You have a link for this. I'm gonna leave the link. And the rules are basically you're gonna go ahead and stack rank up the cards in order of like importance, right? So you have a couple, you have like different statements. So one of them was to have the approval of leaders in my faith or belief group on how and when I choose to become a parent. I ain't gonna hold you. As soon as I read this, I said, not the pastor in my uterus. Like, what you mean? What you mean approval? I want the church as far away from my uterus as possible. Please talk to us. Like, why is this card in here? Because I feel like this was intentional. You probably have seen and have heard some things, as to why people gonna feel like they got to involve their whole faith and like their leaders into something that's supposed to be very intimate, very vulnerable. Like a woman's body goes through a lot during pregnancy, and it shouldn't be the deacons and Mother Jean and everybody involved like in this process. So talk to me about why is this in here?
It was very intentional for me to involve the Pope in your uterus in this moment because one, to go back to your previous points of, the church and purity culture, I was, eating that potato salad for a little bit. There was some book. It was like Say Goodbye to Dating or something like that. I read that with a guy I was dating at that time. It was just like, don't even kiss and hold hands. And
Oh Lord.
whether or not that was followed is beyond the point, but there was
They
pieces
told
of
me to
it.
follow it though.
It
Oh
definitely ingrained something, and it was a
Lord.
lot of
Hmm.
fear tactics. And, there's some churches and some mothers, right? They do the fear tactics in terms of sex. And I've, in my own, like, becoming a mother and all that stuff, you really just want the best for your kid. You just
Hmm.
don't want them to experience things that you experience. My mom, for example, never went to college, never went to high school, and so she was just like, "Do not do anything. Do not have kids,"
Hmm.
because my mom is very much so, you need to have your own education before you enter into a relationship and start popping out
Hmm.
babies. And then also too, the church were like central components of how Black
Mm.
people often lived and operated. Like that's where you
Hello.
get your friends. That's where the first time you were on stage.
Hmm.
There was this.
Oh, trust me, I've been in church. Like
Yeah,
like the morning service, you got
yeah,
the intercessory, then you got the Tuesday prayer. But because I was saying I had the practice on the Wednesday, and then you had to go ahead the kids church. Like before you know it, like that's your job. Like every single minute of every waking day, the church was that. Don't get me started on the revivals. The
yeah.
revival gonna go, and it's like, oh my Lord, like my Lord. But carry on. It's a
Yeah,
lot.
did you see that post? It was going on a while ago. It was like, we don't have the R&B singers today because they stopped singing in churches and stuff. They stopped doing
That's
children's
the
service.
problem. This right here, like it started in the church. You had your quiz in the church. That's where it started. Like morning and night. Like how many dramas? They're drumming right now. What you call it now for the Lord, but they started in their granddaddy and them church. You
Yep.
was the drummer. You had to go ahead and learn the guitar, do the things like the church birthed a lot of and a lot of people can't even hold their notes right now because they ain't sing in church. Because if you was in church, you could hold that note for a little bit. If you was in church for real, anyways, I digress. We was in that though. We was in the church.
Yep.
It was a lot, but carry on.
Yeah, so with that, a lot of it is it actually ranges. I find that there's a lot of flavors of Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
from very conservative, ultra conservative, even in the modesty and the ways that we dress. We
Mm-hmm.
tend to sexualize women in terms of like the natural curves that we have. Talking about those childbearing hips, like that is bone, baby. Like I cannot
Hello.
say anything
Yep. Yep.
about
For
it.
sure.
And so there's just a general lack of conversations, but honestly, I get not jealous, but like envious of Gen Z, where one, they're going to be keeping their edges, right? Because they didn't get relaxers at
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 years old.
That
But also, two, they're they're getting the
just
education,
burn your whole your scalp.
right?
Just burn like girl, like come on, like geez, my hair follicles. Like please cover it with the blood, Lord. It's a lot going on.
Yeah, and also my 4-year-old son, we use anatomically correct words. We're going to normalize things. So
Mm-hmm.
he knows that girls have vaginas and he has a penis, and
Mm-hmm.
he says it like, okay, I like chocolate ice cream. It is not a thing. We're not,
Mm-hmm.
nervous or anything like, yeah,
Oh
like, oh my god, like
yeah.
this is your biology. We wouldn't act this
Mm-hmm.
way with arms. We wouldn't act this way talking about a nose. It is
Oh,
something about,
that's true.
yeah,
And no pet name for somebody knows.
yeah.
Knows. That's just what it is. Like that's just all it is. It's a nose, it's your lips. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point for sure.
It is all on your body. So, I think we're definitely in a wave of normalizing certain conversations. It's going to take time. There's a lot of
Mhm.
deep ingrained generational things. I remember the first time my son said penis in front of, like, I think my mom or just some elders, and they're like, "Whoa, whoa!" And like, I was like, "Okay, what's wrong with this?" And so even through those conversations, I, been blessed with more open-minded, parents and uncles and all that stuff. But, their old school nature definitely comes out every so often.
Mhm.
But this card, this card came about because I took a very interesting class when I was at Duke at actually NC State. It was religion and IVF. People of all faiths, even if you say that you're atheist or agnostic, that is a faith, that is a group set
Mhm.
of beliefs. They all have something that kind of dictates what type of treatment is okay or not.
Mhm.
So we studied mainly Judaism, Islam, and Christianity.
Mhm.
And, there are people who are invested at different, areas who actually want the opinion of their pastors on things, or their imams or their rabbis. And so a lot of these groups have different rules. So, for example, Jewish people, if they are going to use a donor egg, it needs to be the egg of somebody who is Jewish. Why?
Wow.
Because you are Jewish culturally through your maternal bloodline. The daddy could be whoever. Ideally, sure, you would want that person to be Jewish,
Mhm.
but the main, bread and butter to, like,
Mm.
your identity is through the
Wow.
maternal bloodline. They all have varying views of surrogacy. And so, there's levels to it, and there's some people that really keep that in mind. And then there's also people who don't realize how much it actually is important to them, in terms of, their pastor's buy-in or not. Some people realize, "Oh, no, I don't care." So if you are going to a very conservative Christian church
Mm.
and your pastor is saying, they don't believe in IVF, if you don't care, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they kick you out the church, pull you aside, or anything like that. And so, just kind of, I really want people to really understand the consequences. One, what they believe, and then two, the consequences of their beliefs. And I always tell people I have no pearls to clutch.
Hello.
Um, like, I truly just take people and where they are, and I realize I'm probably just with them in a very, like, sliver of a moment in their life
Mhm.
as they're navigating family building. And so really, I just want, at the end of the day, if you never see my face ever again, is that you are
Mhm.
comfortable with the decisions that you have made.
Yeah. Thank you for that, because I'm just like, I mean, again, we live in a world where we have to respect and just like understand people's journeys and perspectives that govern why they're there and the decisions that they're making for sure. From where I'm standing, like as a Christian woman, the Bible did tell us to be fruitful and multiply, but like God ain't said and try to tell us how we're supposed to be multiplying. Like
Yeah.
just like go ahead and all I need to see is the babies. Multiply how you want to multiply, but it's like let it do what it do. So to feel like I had to weigh in the opinion of, my church leaders. And that is an interesting concept because once I picked that up, I said, how? Like what? Like people are thinking like that. But to your point, if that's something that matters to you, and if your faith community has such a big, like you have such a big emotional connection to like the approval of your church, that's something that you don't want to be, removed from that. You don't want to lose that safety. So I can understand that, but thank God it ain't me because
That is not our testimonies,
that is not
whatsoever.
my testimony. One more card that I saw, and it says to have DNA testing done to know if me or my partner are carriers of certain diseases. And I think to me, immediately I just thought about, you know, because in the church they tell you like everything that comes from God is the best thing. Like God gonna make a way, God gonna do the things. But like talk to us about just the knowledge to avoid certain hullabaloos if you could help it, right? Like I don't think that takes away from the power of God. I don't think that takes away from the beauty of the life and the people you were supposed to bring into the earth, because the reality is babies are people who are babies for a very short period of time. Eventually they're toddlers, then they're teens, and then they're young adults, and you are bringing people into the world, right? So talk to us about just, I don't know what is the term that I'm looking for. Talk to us about just almost like separating the two, but also not, because it's like I want to make sure I'm bringing into this world a healthy baby, and gaining that knowledge doesn't necessarily mean that I don't believe that God is powerful. And if, maybe I have a child who has certain diseases, that God's not going to give me the tools and the resources and the things to support it. But like, what is the importance of just get some things checked out to just like avoid. Life is stressful enough. Whatever I can do without, I want to do without. So talk to me about that a little bit as it relates to like the faith and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, their first choice is to have a healthy child that hits the milestones on time, that doesn't have any challenges, internal suffering and all that as well too. And there's a lot of conversations that happen on this. And so that question really came from my knowledge of Black people and some of the genetic carry things that we carry. So, for example, sickle cell. So, you should get tested to see if you have sickle cell trait, because more than likely, if you date within your race, if you're with another Black person, there is a chance that person might also have a sickle cell trait. And so, and having sickle cell disease is no joke. Yes, there's a lot of new technologies. We recently had somebody who was cured or healed from sickle cell, but it was through like a bone marrow transplant. That's not an easy procedure to go through. And, it's really important in this phase to do your family histories as well too. If you have a high incidence of Down syndrome or certain even mental health conditions, they're finding that like schizophrenia or certain bipolar disorders, they're very much so genetically related, or they're often seen on certain genes more than likely. So this conversation is really important because people really need to assess what their capacity is. And
Mhm.
again, I don't judge anybody. And, I've had these conversations with my husband as well too. What if we had a child that was handicapped or medically complex? That is a lot to deal with. That is
Mhm.
often one parent not able to work, or one parent constantly fighting for benefits. And
Mhm.
so if you're in certain areas, it's going to be harder or easier. So for this sickle cell disease conversation, you know, if your child has sickle cell disease, consider you might need to move towards somewhere that has a medical center. You don't want your
Mhm.
child to go into a painful crisis on a Friday night or a Saturday, and they're
And
like,
it's
"Oh,
also important.
yeah, there's hematology doesn't come until Monday morning." And now
Mm.
you're at the mercy of like the ER people who may not be as well versed. So really a lot of it is really considering what are the long-term implications of these decisions.
Mhm.
And then I would love for people to do this on their own and then also with a partner. And dating is not too early. If somebody is not having these conversations or thinks you're crazy for having these conversations during the dating phase after you've invested a bit of time,
Mhm.
then break up with them. But overall, you should really consider this. This
Mhm.
will detail the type of wedding you have. I have someone else that I was coaching. She found out through a very casual conversation with both of their mothers. She was about to get
Mhm.
married in a couple weeks. And one person said, "Oh, so and so has sickle cell trait." And the other mom goes, "Yeah, mine does too." And then like the jaws just dropped. And they're like, "Oh my goodness. Like
Yeah.
there is a chance that our child could have sickle cell." And
Mhm.
they might not have had as large of a wedding as they did because they could have put that money towards IVF or other like family building things.
Mm.
And so this is where I'm talking about like the long-term thinking about stuff. But there's some people who are totally fine having a medically complex person, especially if you had like a sibling with Down
Mhm.
syndrome or autism and all that. Some of these things might not scare you per
Mhm.
se, or you are just say, it doesn't scare me, but I just rather not. And so
Mhm.
going through IVF, oh, there's a lot of people who go through IVF that don't necessarily have infertility. They
Mhm.
have a genetic challenge disorder, or um, they something they just don't want to pass on to the next generation.
Mm. Mm.
And
That's
they're
good to know. That's good to know. Because even the conversation around IVF can get really murky where people are just giving opinions that are lacking empathy and lacking just like the social, financial and all the awareness that there is. Because bringing a child into this world, regardless of the routes that you take, is no joke.
Mhm.
In no sense of the word is no joke. Like that part is like you got diapers and eggs. It's like competing. It's too much. It costs a lot. So people need to make decisions that make sense for them, for their families, and like everything in between. I have two more questions for you just to wrap it up. One is, so we've spoken about fertility, how it affects, women, and how, the role that men play, the role that the church plays, the role that society, like environmental issues such as like, slavery and, medical malpractice, medical mistrust. We've spoken about all these things. If you had a young girl at the age of, her menstrual cycles, like what are the conversations that you are going to be having with her that is obviously age appropriate, but like what are some of the things that parents should just know to feel empowered, not just for themselves, but to at least rectify one, the shaming and the lack of the knowledge, or the nicknames for, it's a penis and a vagina. Like what are some of the things that we just need to do to at least rectify so that the next generation is a little bit more knowledgeable, the next generation is actually sharing the pain, the sharing the issues that they're having instead of suffering and crying alone. What are the things that you're going to be telling this young girl, this young daughter, your own niece, family, whoever? But what are the conversations that you're going to be having with them? And like, how it's going to progress so that they're better equipped to just deal with womanhood, honestly.
Yeah. There's two realms. As a Christian, I really would want to build up the confidence in the young
Mm,
woman. Being confident in your body. It is shaped exactly how it's supposed to be shaped.
mm,
And that doesn't just start, at the menstrual point. These are little nuggets that we should be depositing in our children, from a young age. Um, and really just having that openness of conversation and admitting, as a parent, I don't know everything. Even as a scholar, I don't know everything. I don't know everything that's going on in your mind. So let me have a space. So that's going to take me reflecting on how people responded to my questions as a young kid, and realizing that so many times we say, I'll never be this or that. And we end up being the same exact thing and like making a big deal.
hello.
Yeah. And so just having open and honest conversations about any and everything, because from that flows very open and honest conversations about menstruation,
Mm,
about, I'm ovulating and I feel kind of frisky. Like, what does that mean? And just saying, okay, that happens to me too. And
mhm,
and
mhm,
that's okay. And you don't need to jump on anything, that's just walking. And
mhm. Hello.
just really normalize these conversations.
Yeah.
I'm a part of a really, really great group, curated by my leak teal. It's called My Leak and Mamas. And it
Mhm,
really is open and honest conversation of moms like,
mhm,
something's happening with my kid. I have no idea what's going on. And
mhm,
we support one another. We might, somebody might be the expert on this and that.
mhm,
So really just having open and honest conversations, modeling, sticking up for yourself at doctor's
mhm,
appointments and wherever. So having your kid with you. I think we talked a little bit about it earlier, the secrecy. We have a lot of
mhm,
medical secrecy as well too. Some people's aunties, uncles, grandparents be dying. We had no idea they had cancer. We had no idea what was going on.
mhm, mhm. Hello?
And so, and then from that, really just helping people track their own symptoms. And
Yeah.
what I see in the young girls right now is their menstrual cramps being ignored.
Mm,
And come to find out they have endometriosis. They might have some small fibroids as well too. This
Mm.
conversation can be like 8 parts if
Yeah.
we talk
Hello.
about
Oh, I'm having you back because I'm
yeah.
enjoying this so much and I'm learning so much. So much.
Yeah, so really just supporting their voice in a lot
Mhm.
like at baseline, it is supporting the voice of our young girls. And then from there, they're able to advocate for themselves and not just focusing the conversation on not getting pregnant. Um,
Mhm.
one with all my younger cousins, I always ask, what do you want to do when you grow up? How much money you want to have in the bank? What cars do you want to drive? And all that stuff. Okay, so to get to that point, you need to, protect yourself and maybe focus a little bit more or less on boys or girls
Mhm.
and really kind of figure out what your future is, calling for. What is your God
Yeah.
given call and stuff? And not putting too much pressure on that either. Balance.
Mhm.
I think balance is the word.
Mhm.
You can't
Mhm.
pressure anybody into either direction. So that's on a social
Mhm.
aspect, right? So now we don't have these elevated cortisol levels and stress factor and all
Yeah.
that. And then on the biological realm, helping the young girls track their cycles. It's going to be a
Mhm.
little wacky the first year or two. Not putting pressure. I actually came from the camp of I didn't tell my mom the first time I had my menstrual cycle. I was
Oh, I gotta tell you a story about my menstrual cycle. It was crazy. Nobody ever spoke to me about it or nothing. Like I'm talking about nobody. Now, mind you, I'm the fourth, right? So it's my brother, it's two sisters before me, and then it's me. And my mama live with me whole time. This baby's in the house. Why I start bleeding? I'm like, first of all, I'm feeling a little bit of the cramps. I'm 11. I promise you, nobody has ever spoken to me about this. And this is not the time of the internet where like I could just be like, oh, what's going on? I literally did not know what was happening. So I'm bleeding. Now I'm scared. Like, Lord have mercy. Every 5 seconds I'm in the shower. Like I'm trying to like wash up. And then I'll change, my underwear. I'm bleeding again. So now I got a mirror down and like, Lord, did I have a cut? I'm inspecting my vagina. I'm doing all kinds of like surgery. I'm 11. Still bleeding. Second day, I'm still bleeding. At that point, I'm like, the devil has taken over me. I've been took. I've been took. I'm gonna go ahead and go to hell. Lord, I'm bleeding. Like you bled, I'm bleeding. It's a lot going on. Day two. By the third day, I was like, The Lord rose up on the third day. I'm gonna rise and ask somebody. So I go to my sister and I'm crying. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I've been bleeding. I'm talking about Jesus wept, Dr. Morine. I was weeping for my life. I was crying. I was crying like I'm gonna go to hell. I don't know what's happening. And there was just this fear. I felt like I was gonna get in trouble with my mom because it's like, why is you bleeding all over? Like I was in the shower the whole time. And I ain't told nobody until the third day. Then my sister laughed. She was like, oh girl, you just got your period. I'm like, my period. Then she take me to my mom. Then I have the conversations around don't be around no boys. You about to be pregnant. Like, and I felt like then I had to go into almost like hiding because I'm like, oh my Lord, like I don't want to be around no boys. I don't have no money. Because even back in the day, you get pregnant, they're gonna kick you out the house. You got to go. You cannot be pregnant and just be all up in my house using up my liability, you and your child life. So I'm like, Lord, I cannot be homeless. I started avoiding boys. It was traumatic. It was traumatic, very traumatic for me. And I laugh about it, but I'm like, dang, like why nobody just like told me? Like I didn't know what my
Mhm.
period was. I just didn't know what menstruation was, what it meant. And even the conversation, like I didn't know how long it was going to be taking. It was just kind of like, don't do this, wear this, and that was it. And I'm just like, y'all didn't set me up for success. It was terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah, it's I'm laughing because I felt the same. I was like, great, I'm dying. Rest in peace, Maureen. Bless.
Hello.
Be blessed, like, but I hear this all the time. There's so many people who are just fearful. And it's just wild because it's an experience, like as you said, you had women in your house every single
Three
24
of them.
and this was
Even the
happening.
aunties and then was coming too, just talking the whole time, and ain't nobody said nothing. Oh, I was mad. I was so mad.
Yeah, I remember having, oh gosh, I remember having this patient. She was like 17 and she had a yeast infection.
Mm.
And she was like, "Great, I have an STD, I have HIV, I'm dying." And I was like, "Wait, have you ever had
HIV
sex?"
is crazy.
Yeah, she was like, she's never been sexually active, never
Uh-huh.
had penetration or anything like that. So why would
Nothing.
you think it's STI, like a STDI? She's like, "I don't know,
And to go
like."
straight to AIDS, like, girl. Ain't no steps in between. I got AIDS. I'm finna be gone. I got the AIDS. It's gone. The Lord about to take me. I'm just gonna go ahead and be going like, girl. It's a lie. It's a lie.
It's a lot, but I see the differences though. When I
Mhm.
lived in North Carolina, when I was at Duke, I worked part time at an OBGYN, like an outpatient OBGYN office as a nurse practitioner. And the white women and their white daughters came in and they were asking for birth control together. And of course, me, first generation Haitian, I'm like, oh my God, like you're not getting in trouble. It's like,
Like,
she's actually open to the fact that you might be
yeah.
sexually active and she just wants you to have the education to protect yourself. Uh, so that was one
They
extreme.
be chill. They be real chill and cool with it. I be like, I wish my mama was white. Not all the time, but it be times. It be when I want to yell at somebody and slam the door. I be like, I wish my mama's name was Susan. Susan McFadden. You could slam the door at Susan and it's gonna be all right. You can't do that to Yvonne. You cannot do that to her. And you can definitely talk to your Susan mother about your menstruation. She going, it's gonna be a safe space.
Yeah.
That wasn't my African parent. That's just not what happened. And I'd be like, dang, Susan couldn't be my mom. Susan really could have been, but
That
I'd be like,
transition though needs to be studied to be able to cut out your parents and then being like their best friend within 10 years.
yeah.
Bonkers, like, it's
Like,
crazy.
no, I had so many dreams. Like, I just want to slam a door. Like, oh God, that's just one of my goals. Like, it was such a goal. Like, I'll be in my room packing my bags. Like, I'll be like, I'm finna be gone. I'm just gonna go ahead and be gone. You're not being nice to me. And then it's like, I'll come and I want to slam. And I always had to stop by the law because you're not slamming the door in your black mama house.
Nope.
That's just not what we're doing. Because you will be gone to the upper room. You will be gone for sure. For
Yep.
sure, you will be gone.
I remember accidentally sucking my teeth and I was like, just trying to, make a beatbox real quick just to save my face real quick,
You got a
you know?
what's going on? Like, no, you cannot do that. But no, yes, you were saying the biological, you spoke about the social part, the biological part, like young girls knowing the menstruation, and then I went on a whole tangent, but
Yeah.
please, if you remember your thoughts, finish it out for us.
Yeah, just really having a holistic experience, and thinking of how the churches can play a role. It is not sexual to talk about, your reproductive health
Mm-hmm,
and having these conversations in very safe spaces because people are
mm-hmm,
struggling.
mm-hmm.
And from that struggle and the fear from flows a lot of other questions that are not being asked.
Yeah.
And so I think it was, yeah, like your favorite aunties podcast, whatever. They're just talking about the difference between like the
Oh,
flesh
I
and
love them. I love
yeah.
them. So fun. Very fun.
Yeah, just, just really like looking at your bodies, even looking at your breasts and how they change throughout the month. And
Mm-hmm,
so honestly, my goal for all people, and again, just to reiterate how we started is how we ended, you're never too old to like learn, and
mm-hmm.
you should not shame yourself for not knowing certain things.
Yeah.
There's so many resources out now, and definitely look at the credentials of people. And
Mm-hmm.
there's there's a lot of people trying to sell certain things, certain courses, but just
It
really,
don't always be a lie. But
yeah.
thank God we got Dr. Morine with all her degrees. She gonna let us know what's going on. So watch my video till the end. Okay.
Oh man, I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much for coming. And I wanted us to end on a lighter note. We spoke a little bit, actually, we spoke a lot about our faith. And
Yes.
because we're talking about fertility and having the babies, I want to pose you this question. Now, I understand you as a married woman, you is spoken for. I ain't trying to come for no nothing. I ain't trying to do that. But say you had to pick a man in the Bible to be a father to your child, just based off of their characteristics, right? From what we know about them, who you gonna have. While you think about that, I'm gonna tell you who I'm not gonna have. Abraham. I know they call him the father of many nations, but you're not going to take my baby and try to sacrifice my baby. Absolutely not. Go ahead and tell the Lord I said no. My wife said no. Absolutely not. You're not about to come for my baby. Uh-uh. After them years, no. I done went through some things. Okay, I done went through some things to go ahead and get my baby. You're not about to get my Isaac and then in sacrifice. Get you a lamb. Okay, gonna cut it up into lamb chops, put it on the grill and sacrifice to the Lord and leave my baby alone. Could not be Abraham. It also could not be Paul. Paul talked too much. I cannot do that. I
One.
already talk a lot. Paul gonna write me a letter about my baby. It's gonna be a lot. I do not want no baby father that's gonna talk as much as Paul. I don't want to hear no letter. That baby gonna write you a letter about everything. You're not gonna annoy me or my child. Cannot be the father of my child. Only person I can think of that could be the father of my child, realistically speaking, David. Now,
David.
David, he was a little hoe, don't get me wrong.
He was in
However,
the streets, Benny.
I'm just saying,
Keep
however,
crying about it.
I'm just saying, because think about David character wise. David had a low, David had, the spine was aligned, right? I feel like David had that sense of him, like, what you're not going to do is like, like he had that going on for him a little bit. And then he also was a king. So my children not about to be out here, we're
That's
not gonna be struggling on no welfare, trying to figure like, well, like, no, my kids gonna be well taken care of. Um, he was a hoe though. I do not want my kids to be hoes. So we got to figure that part out. But the only reasonable person I can think of right now is David. Either that or Joseph. The one that was whatchamacallit?
a many
Taking
coat.
the coat of many color dude. That
Mhm.
one, but like
He's
I be
painful.
on the fence. I be on the fence with him a lot because it's like I get it, but also like no, like you in jail. I don't think I do like jail a lot like that. I don't want to do that because it's
Well,
like you.
after lockup, it's a thing. Like,
I can't do that. Like you in jail, it's like it's a lot going on. I'm gonna stick by David. So go ahead and tell me yours, and we're gonna wrap this up.
so, the first thing that came to mind is someone I
It
shouted.
can't be Jesus. It cannot be
No, no,
Jesus.
no, no, no,
Okay, all right. Because like I'm gonna have my child with the Lord. No, leave that baby be pure. It cannot be Jesus.
no. The first one that came to mind is the person from the Bible that I actually mentioned in my vows. The other Joseph, Mary's Joseph. So Jesus is,
Jesus, Daddy.
yes, Jesus is
What?
stepdaddy technically.
You
Um,
want to be Jesus step mama? Like, why would you want to do that? That's a lot of grief. You want to be Jesus step mama? That is right, Dr. Morine. But please tell me why.
Well,
How?
I shouted out Joseph in my vows to my husband because my son is actually not my husband's child. It's from a previous,
Aw, that's
relationship.
beautiful.
And the ways that my husband Peter has stepped in, like he's the daddy. Everybody think he the daddy. He's
Hello?
doing pickups, drop offs, packing lunches, uh,
Mm-hmm.
hiding right now so I can have peace to do this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Hello?
what I do. There's a lot that Joseph took on that he didn't have to, like any
That's
random
true.
man.
That's
He was
honorable.
born with
That's
it.
honorable.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
he's
love that.
honorable, submitted to the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and did something that, he stepped in. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus's life in that story, yes, God, orchestrated it, but Joseph played a critical role too in the ways that he
Mm-hmm.
protected Mary, because people would have been upside her behind for getting
Mm-hmm.
pregnant.
Mhm.
Talking
Yeah,
about
he
what
has a little bit of a
getting
soft
pregnant.
life.
Yep.
Yeah, he did a little something. Like he not a little something. He did a lot of something because it's like without her life was already hard, but without Joseph, her life would have been
It would have been a lot.
even harder. And I'm all about women, tapping into their soft their soft, girl era. And shout out to your husband. I
Yes.
guess I'll give it to you. You could be Jesus. Stepmom. I'm gonna give it to you. Who else? You say you had two other options.
Let's see, who else? Um, oh gosh, in the story of Hannah, when she was praying for Samuel, I believe
Mm-hmm.
her husband was Elkanah, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Elkanah was a little bit of a hoe. He had two wives, and so
Not a
the other
little bit.
one,
Not all the way there, just a little bit. You just
a
need a
little bit
little
of a
bit.
hoe.
Hello?
He had 2 wives, but he had such compassion for Hannah and the fact that
Mm,
she could not conceive, and he saw her. He gave her land and houses and loved on
mhm.
her, he didn't diminish her,
Yeah,
as well too. So I just find beautiful there's, like, a lot of great qualities in a lot of the men of the Bible for sure.
yeah.
Not Adam, he's such a hater and completely threw Eve under the bus, be
And
like,
I blame him too, because it's like the
"Yeah,
Lord told you, where were you? Like, open your mouth and instruct. Like,
yeah, he was
no.
probably watching her,
You
throw her
watch
life
her
away."
eat that, like, come on, like, please. And no, just speak up and say something. We could, like, I have more smoke for Adam than I do Eve. I have a lot of smoke for Eve, but Adam, we gonna exchange some words when I see him.
Love
But
that.
Dr. Maureen, thank you so much. This was such, a fun, educational, engaging conversation. Thank you so very much for coming. And like I said, at the top of this interview, this is fertility week, right? But it doesn't mean you only use this week to learn about your fertility or your body, right? Like, use the resources that's available to you. Ask around, like Dr. Maureen said, talk to people, learn what you need to learn. It's a lot of resources that you even have through podcasts. Like, people are putting out work. Dr. Maureen now has one, which we're gonna link everything, and she's gonna tell us where we can, connect with her a little bit more. But I encourage you. I'm not a mother myself. Someday I hope to be. So these are like, I'm gonna play this with my husband and see where he gonna put the priority. Because if he go ahead and put the church up there, we might need a lawyer, because you're not about to have the Pope in my uterus. That's just not what we finna do. We're not gonna do that. Absolutely not. We're just not gonna do that. But also, just shout out to our pastor. Like, we go to the same church. Our pastor is very much just like, the theology sounds. I can say that, like, the theology sound, the things that I feel like I'm learning in church, it makes sense. I even love the section that we did on, like, finances, right? Because it's like, typically the church don't want to, teach about financial literacy. They just want to tell you, give us the money, we going to, build the lights and have the fancy things for the church. But like, to have a whole segment on, like, financial literacy that our pastor did was just like amazing. Or even like the one he did on, like, buying homes and things like that. So there's just a little bit more, where I feel like just the theology and the common sense seems to really just align a little bit more. So shout out to that as well. But thank you again so very much. Please let us know where everybody can find you, any, social that you want to give to us, where they can find, the cards for sure, the name of the podcast. And once we're done, you could give me all the links. I'm going to link it in the description of this video so that everybody knows, where to get a lot more of these goodies, because this is just an hour and some change, but I know there's a lot more knowledge, where this came from. So
Thank you so much. Yes, fertility goals at fertility goals, all one word, on Instagram and TikTok. I'm starting to build out more of my content. I speak a lot. I just be running my mouth. I love yapping, but I really love for people to have this information as well too. And so on YouTube, fertility goals, the podcast. I'm hoping to expand in the future once I get, tech savvy and, put it on a few more platforms. But that's where you can find me. And there you can have a link to my website, which is yourfertilitygoals.com. That's where you can find the card deck. That's where you can book one-on-one coaching. If you're considering egg freezing, IVF, maybe even adoption, which is a whole nother can of worms. Um, Please, I would love to, connect with you. Typically about a 50-minute session. We're going to go over the ins and outs of the menstrual cycle, what you should be considering for yourself, and then just essentially preparing for a doctor's visit, right? I
mhm.
can't be everywhere. I can't see everyone. I'm just licensed in Connecticut and New York.
Mm.
But overall, I want people to feel empowered. So definitely invest in that. time to really get to know yourself better. And so thank you so much. Definitely be sending you all the links, Benny. And if there's ever a need for a part two, part three, any questions, drop comments into the chats,
You know?
in the comments as
Hmm.
well too. I'm very active in that, just really answering questions of the what if, stigma, shame, any of that. So
Hmm.
I'm here
Oh, I
for
have your number. Once I'm with child,
it.
it's gonna be like Dr. Marine. I'm here. What they say? Okay, this is what Dr. Marine said. Dr. Marine, they say like I'm gonna be in there like, don't
They're
don't
gonna bar
play with
me from
it.
the hospital. Like, who are you?
And now just like, okay, so but no, thank you so very much. And like you guys heard her, leave all the comments. If there's anything that you guys want us to talk more about. We didn't even touch into, adoption. We didn't even go, deeply into IVF or even like, birth control and how that, the conversations around that. So if you guys are interested in any of that, definitely just like leave the comments down here or go on her own Instagram, leave it down there so she can give you like more one-on-one whatchamacallit resources that you guys can tap into. But thank you so much. I appreciate you very much. Now my voice trying to be gone, like, oh no. I did a whole lot of yapping. I love to yap too. So I'm just kind of like, I don't mind yapping. I love when I meet other yappers. It's just like yap session. But thank you so very much. And yeah, I appreciate you. And I'm gonna go ahead and see you on the next one. Bye, Z's.